It was a moonless night, and the clock struck midnight as I got into my car. I had to make a long drive home through a desolate stretch of road. The darkness was overwhelming, with only the dim glow of my headlights piercing through the blackness. As I drove along the deserted road, a sense of unease washed over me. The silence was eerie, and my heart raced with every flickering shadow that passed by. It felt as if unseen eyes were watching my every move. Suddenly, I noticed a figure standing by the side of the road. It was a man, dressed in tattered clothes, his face obscured by darkness. My instincts told me to keep driving, to not engage with this stranger in the dead of night. But there was something about him that drew me in. With a pang of guilt and curiosity, I slowed down and rolled my window down just a crack. The man's eyes glinted in the faint moonlight, full of an unsettling intensity. He asked for a ride, claiming that his car had broken down and he needed help. My heart pounded in my chest as I hesitated, but I ultimately gave in to the stranger's plea. He got into the passenger seat, emitting an unsettling aura. The air inside the car grew heavy and suffocating, as if a dark presence had entered with him. As we continued down the empty road, a thick fog began to creep in, enveloping us completely. The visibility dwindled to almost nothing, and the asphalt beneath us seemed to stretch endlessly into the unknown. My unease deepened as I realized we hadn't passed a single sign or landmark in what felt like hours. Trying to calm my racing thoughts, I glanced at the stranger sitting beside me, but he had become something entirely different. His features distorted, his eyes glowed a haunting shade of red. Panic surged through me, and I slammed on the brakes, bringing the car to a screeching halt. Just as I was about to leap out of the car, the stranger turned his head slowly towards me, a wicked grin spreading across his face. He reached out with long, skeletal fingers and whispered, "You shouldn't have stopped." In that moment, a piercing shriek tore through the silent night. It was the sound of 1,000 tortured souls, a chilling symphony of agony and despair. I felt a presence, a malevolent force, descend upon us. The car windows shattered into 1,000 pieces, and the dark fog swirled violently around us. Terrified, I fumbled for the car keys, desperately trying to start the engine, but it was no use. The car remained lifeless and immobile, trapped in this nightmarish dimension. Outside, the sinister figure began to morph into an otherworldly creature, his face twisted and contorted, his body elongating and shifting. Realizing escape was impossible, I closed my eyes, preparing for the worst. The car became engulfed in a blinding light, and the last thing I felt was a cold, bony hand gripping my shoulder. When I awoke, I found myself alone in my car on the deserted road, the sun shining weakly through the early morning mist. It was as though the horrors of the night had evaporated with the darkness. But the memory of that encounter still haunted me, reminding me that there are terrors lurking in the most ordinary of places, waiting to pounce on unsuspecting souls, and from that day on, I never dared to drive alone at midnight again.